In just 8 days after its release, Nezha 2 would become the most watched movie ever made in China. Just 2 weeks later, this little Chinese boy would knock off Pixar and Disney to become the most viewed animated movie of all time. And now, 3 months later, it's made over $2 billion and sits at number 7 on the worldwide box office after almost being canceled. It's this beautiful story of rags to riches, of the director pouring his heart and soul into the movie, of international renaissance. But nobody knows it exists. It feels weird to call something so popular a secret, but text 5 of your homies right now in the group chat and I'll personally give you a if you can get any of them to say more than,
"Oh, that was on TikTok, China movie, big money."
Those answers weren't enough for me. At this point, I was obsessed with this film. I had to find out why it did so well. Was it that peak? Was it just marketing?
Wait, hold on, it's a sequel? What about the first one?
But before I could understand Nezha, I had to understand Donghua. I had to explore the roots. I had to explore where it came from. I had to dive into the Chinese anime rabbit hole. And that's when I found a couple of shows that had Twitter in a chokehold. From the very first opening frame, the screen...
Dangerous action, please do not imitate.
The screen...
Dangerous action, please do not imitate.
The screen can barely contain the volcanic eruption of color the animators put on display. Energy dashes and scatters around. The camera is flipping and flying through scenes, giving everything this insane sense of depth and scale. And when they get to the hand-to-hand combat, just... All of the Donghua I watched for this video have disgusting choreography, but you could argue this show at its peak has the best. The counters, the counters, it can feel like you're watching a dance more than a fight at times as the characters glide and skate around the screen. I could bear witness to this fella getting in this brother chest like bronchitis forever. The animation alone is almost enough to transport you into another world. But then you get to the dialogue.
你好.
Ni hao. Oh, fuck. How do you say this shit? What the Ming's she virtue was Jingzai Zunzhao Hao Kan de Donghua?
Hey, that was pretty good. But actually, when you said 我的名字是, you don't need to say 的名字是, just 我叫 virtue. Like, call me virtue.
Oh, you speak English?
No, just that first speech and this one explaining it.
Yeah, you're kidding, right?
Huh? 什么?
Look, I'm not dumb. I understand that China is a gigantic country with all kinds of dialects and culture even within itself. And this might be the cringiest thing I've ever said on this channel. But as someone who's defeated the 1-inch tall barrier of subtitles and experienced so much great foreign media, it's crazy to me just how much hearing Chinese threw me off. But that's not the real problem with this dialogue. The real problem is that it just kind of sucks. Look, this show is not taking itself seriously at all, and sometimes that can be fucking hilarious. The main character flip-flops from Jinwoo levels of aura farming when he knows he can't lose to kicking brothers in the nuts and cheating like 2011 Randy Orton when he has the slightest disadvantage. But I feel like I've heard almost every single line in this show before. Some of it is probably references I'm not picking up on, like,
"How could I, a C-class warrior, be defeated so easily? Is that the power of the farmer's 3 punches?"
But there's also just generic shit like, "I'm sorry for making you suffer. Leave the rest to me. Why don't you come down here and fight me one-on-one like a man?"
Riley, that's the whole point of belonging to a crew. So you ain't never got to worry about handling shit like a man.
Yeah, man. We don't fight fair. We believe in overwhelming force.
I don't think there's anything wrong with a little bit of cliche or tropes in a story, but when you have them happen back to back to back to back, the characters stop feeling like people and start feeling more like costumes. And on top of that, the animation is not peak every episode. Don't get me wrong, I don't think any TV show could look like how this does at its peak consistently, but when you're going from this to this, It creates this kind of whiplash on top of you already not giving a fuck about anybody on the screen. Still, it's a fun watch, I guess. I think I'm kinda aging out of it, but I feel like we all have our slop genres. That's action for me. I know at least one of you motherfuckers in the chat is a Yaoi Yuri fan who's watched the same scenario 17 times with a smile on your face. But besides the production, this show wasn't getting me any closer to understanding Ne Zha. I needed consistency, I needed story, I needed characters, I needed
Hero X!
Another thing I noticed across all the Donghua I watched, especially the recent ones, is how damn ambitious they are. They all try to innovate on the medium in some way, but maybe none more than To Be Hero X. A show that blends 3D and 2D animation with less seams than the one going down your ass. A show that comes with movie level quality every single week. A show that has a poll you can vote on to determine what happens to the characters in the future. But where this show brought me enlightenment on this Donghua journey wasn't in the animation or the innovation, it was in the story and the characters. As ambitious as the production around To Be Hero X is, the story is simple, universal. It's a world of superheroes controlled by their popularity with the people through a trust number and ruled by corporations who manipulate these ratings through marketing, media campaigns, and manufactured public stunts. Still, it's in this simple world and the way the characters interact with it that made me realize why I can't really connect with the MC and Supercube, or even why as a kid I was never drawn to Superman. All of my favorite heroes are losers. They lose over
I'm afraid.
and over.
I don't need to provide amusement or enjoyment. I don't need to receive any amusement or enjoyment.
And over.
I can't figure out what I'm supposed to do. Everything I do is not going right.
And over. And over again. Maybe that says more about me than the characters, but that's what life is to me. You get beat over the head by some bullshit every day, every single day it's something new. Whether it's a hole you dug for yourself or one the universe threw you into. But in this world filled with discrimination, manipulation, and struggle over an arbitrary number, it's that same number that becomes a mirror. Not one that lets you look up from the bottom and see heroes standing safely at the edge, but one that shows you the people in the mud with you. The ones waking up every day carrying the same fears, facing the same risks, and still finding the courage to pick up the shovel and dig anyway. To me, that's when heroes truly inspire people to make a difference, when they can show you that it's never too late to climb out and get a second chance, never too late to grow and change, that it's never too late to be a hero. Or maybe the corporations are manipulating every single aspect of that, even without the heroes themselves knowing, to get sorry motherfuckers like me to believe it. At this point, I felt like I was ready for Ne Zha. I watched a few other Donghua that I didn't give segments to in this video, like Link Click, King's Avatar, and Scissor 7. But obviously, you can't understand an entire culture, especially one as big as China's, in a few animated TV shows. That's how you end up like that one motherfucker on Twitter who said, "Murder is actually really frowned upon in Japan. It goes against the traditional concept of ikiru, which means to live." But still, I felt like I had a solid foundation of what to expect from this medium now, so I dove into the first Ne Zha movie and holy fucking shit, it's cinema! All of those aspects from Chinese animation from before, the choreography, the universal themes, the ambition, it's like all of those multiplied by 5 and brought to their peak at the same time. I was struggling to even put into words how good this movie is, and the best way I could come up with it is to talk about how it was made. The director, Yu Yang, or Zhao Ji, which I'm pretty sure means dumpling in Chinese, so we're gonna call this fella Dumpling. Dumpling is a pretty normal guy, comes from a pretty normal family. Growing up, he wanted to be a comic artist, but like a lot of us, you get to college and you realize that art school is 1, fucking expensive, and 2, doesn't guarantee any kind of job. So instead, he opted to go to medical school, specifically the West China School of Pharmacy in Sichuan, which, as far as I can tell, is kind of like a Yale, Harvard type school. It was here that he would discover a 3D animation program called Maya and start pursuing 3D animation on the side while getting his degree. After he graduated though, he realized he didn't really fuck with the medical shit at all. He found his way into a marketing job for a few years, but he didn't really fuck with that shit either. He was just unhappy. So Dumpling fought against his own destiny. He took a leap of faith to control his own fate and pursue the only thing he knew he was passionate about, animation. He moved back in with his parents where, because of their unwavering trust and belief and understanding in him, he was allowed to study and work on his craft with no job. After his father passed away, it would be 3 years of living on nothing but his mom's pension of $140 a month. And still, even with them having to sacrifice their own livelihood, his mom had an unwavering belief in him. That belief would finally pay off in 2008 when Dumpling's debut short film See Through would go on to win multiple domestic and international awards, ultimately landing him as the director of Ne Zha, his first ever feature film. And every aspect of his story you can feel in the movie and its characters. The decision to change Ne Zha from what he was normally portrayed as a cute or powerful hero into this rebellious, ugly, dark child you would think has to be a reflection of himself. Changing Ne Zha's parents to be more like his own, that unconditional love is translated in a way that feels so sweet and warm. The characters yank and pull at your heartstrings and tie little bows with them before curling up inside your heart and building a home there. You can feel that this was a movie he was willing to stake his life on, as you're either gripped by this world-pulling dance of choreography or erupted from shot to shot by these breathtaking transitions. And this is just the first movie. This isn't even the $2 billion one. But this one, on just a budget of $9 million, would box office over $700 million. And our guy Dumpling, who had to work for everything he has, who believes that animation is a lifelong journey, not a cheat code, that makes every film like it could be his last. All he does with the success is go even fucking harder, even more ambitious with the second movie. But ambition isn't always rewarded. For the first 2 years, he tried to outsource some of the animation to Western studios, but felt like the movie wasn't being prioritized and the traditional Chinese elements weren't being understood properly. Most movies would have been canceled or turned out as right here. Miscommunication, culture gaps, way too many messy chefs in the kitchen. But through sheer willpower, that isn't Ne Zha 2's story. He drags together a hodgepodge team of over 4,000 animators in 138 studios. There's reports that Dumpling started pouring his own money into the movie out of pocket, that he personally demonstrated over 70% of all the choreography that happens, that he tried to oversee everything himself, that he worked such a grueling schedule that it moved his co-workers to tears. But what they created out of that chaos is a fucking masterpiece. It's a revolutionary improvement on a movie that was already pretty good. There's some of the best 3D animation that I've ever seen in my life. The only thing I can realistically compare it to is Spider-Verse, and I don't say that lightly. There's scenes that apparently took over a year to work on, and you can feel that effort and beauty not only of the action, but the backgrounds and the characters. The action itself in the second half is insanity. There's so many moments of striking imagery that just carve their way into your brain. The scale of this movie, there's a scene that has over like 100 million, and I'm not hyperbolizing, dead ass, 100 million characters that, as far as I can tell, are all individually modeled and animated. This is Avengers Endgame level spectacle I'm talking about. But maybe even more importantly than the art and the animation is the story. Ne Zha 2 isn't just this artistic magnum opus. The the core theme of defying fate and challenging convention reverberates through your soul because it's not just fiction, it's a reflection. A reflection of an artist who refused to become what the world told him he ought to be, of a son who carried his mother's belief, sacrifice, and loss to theaters, of a boy named Neja who became a legend.